Assalamu alaikum, dear student. Topic of today's presentation is selecting and defining a research topic. The learning outcomes are, after going through this presentation, you people become enabled to describe the importance of developing a good research topic, identify a research topic, formulate and state a research hypothesis. So, first of all, what is research problem? Research problem is exactly a problem that someone would like to research. A problem can be anything that a person finds unsatisfactory or unsettling, a difficulty of some sort, a state of affairs that need to be changed, anything that is not working as well as it might. Problems involve areas of concern to researchers, conditions they want to improve, difficulties they want to eliminate, questions for which they seek answers. The first step in selecting a research topic is to identify a journal subject area that is related to your area of expertise and is of particular interest to you. The selection of a research problem involves reading, discussing, and conceptualizing. Typically, the process is one of successive approximations to the problem as factors related to the problems are considered. Selecting a good research topic is well worth the time and effort consuming. The three main sources of research topics are theories, personal experiences, and library searches. For beginning researchers, selection of a problem is the most difficult step in the research process. Some graduate students spend many anxiety ridden days and sleepless nights worrying about where they are going to find a problem to address in their thesis or dissertation. Main, as in the last slide we mentioned, the main sources of research problems are: number one is a theory. So, what is theory? A theory is an organized body of concepts, generalizations, and principles. Educationally relevant theories, such as theories of learning and behavior, can provide the inspirations for many research problems. For example, Piaget's theories of learning is a best source of educational research in many psychological related researches. There are so many learning theories, such as Vygotsky's theories of social learning. So it can be a source of a good research topic. Similarly, a personal experience. Another common way to identify research topic is to examine some of the questions we commonly ask ourselves about education. Library searches. Another commonly cited source for a research topic is a library search. It includes mailing lists, social media, books, journals, encyclopedias, etc. After selecting the topic of our interest, the next step is mostly the researcher select a topic that is broader in nature. So the next step is to narrowing the topic. For most quantitative researchers and some qualitative researchers, the general topic area must be narrowed to a more specific, researchable one. A topic that is too broad can lead to a grief. First, a broad topic enlarges the task of reviewing the related literature, likely resulting in many extra hours spent in the library. Second, broad topics complicate the organization of the literature review itself. Finally, and most important, a topic that is too broad tends to result in a study that is journal, difficult to carry out, and difficult to interpret. Conversely, a well defined, manageable problem results in a well defined, manageable study. The appropriate time to narrow a topic differs for quantitative and qualitative approaches. Quantitative research typically requires that the researcher spell out a specific and manageable topic at the start of the research process. Conversely, for most qualitative research, the researcher often enters the research setting with only a general topic in mind. Following observations over a period of time, the qualitative researchers formulate a narrower research topic. How the broad topic can be converted into a narrow topic. Here are a few examples. For example, we have a broad research topic. How is passing through Piaget's 4 stages of cognitive development related to success at college? The narrowing of the topic, it can be what factors affects the length of time children take to pass from one Piaget stage to the next. The second example is how is use of the internet by elementary age children related to success at college? Again, this is a broader topic. Its narrowing form is how does providing computer to children who have not previously had access to such technology affect their achievement? So, what are the characteristics of a good research topic? The topic is interesting, it will hold your interest throughout the entire research process because research process is a time taking activity, and if you people lost your interest, it's become you people become unable to complete your research project. So the first characteristic is the topic should be interesting, that your topic is researchable. The second characteristic, it can be investigated through the collection and analysis of data and is not stated as an effort to determine what should be done. Your topic is significant. It contributes in some way to the improvement or understanding of educational theory or practice. The very important consideration is that your topic is ethical. It does not involve practices or strategies that may embrace or harm that may embarrass or harm participants. Your topic is manageable. It fits your level of skill, available resources, and time restrictions. Now, stating research problem. Selection of a research problem does not necessarily mean that it is adequately stated. Usually, a problem requires some reworking to get into a suitable form for the study to proceed effectively. A problem may be stated broadly and then systematically restricted through a review of the literature in the initial stages of the research effort. It is better to work in this direction than to begin with a problem that is too narrow and then attach pieces to expand it. Research problem may be stated in a declarative or descriptive manner or in a question form. Many researchers, possibly the majority, prefer the question form, but either form is acceptable. There is no hard and fast rule. You can adopt any one whether you can formulate your research problem in a declarative form, descriptive manner, or in a question form. The question form may aid in focusing the problem, and it is especially effective when sub-problems are included within the larger research problem. The most important characteristics of the problem statement is that it must provide adequate focus and direction for the research. Stating quantitative research problem. For a quantitative study, a well-written topic statement generally describes the variable of the interest, the specific relations among those variables, and ideally important characteristics of the participants. For example, gifted students, fourth graders with learning disabilities, teenage mothers, etc. You can evaluate your research problem by yourself while keeping in view this criteria. That's a very simple criteria. Whenever you state your research problem, just look at it whether the variables are obviously mentioned in your statement, whether design of the research is obvious, and the third criteria is whether the population of interest is mentioned or not. In this way, you can by yourself evaluate your research problem and proceed on it, whether it is meeting the criteria or not. Here we are discussing an example. The topic to be investigated in this study is the effect of positive reinforcement on the quality of 10th graders English composition. It is clear that the variables in this studies are positive reinforcement and quality of English compositions, and the participant will be the 10th graders. Here are some examples of quantitative research topics. The topic to be investigated in this study is secondary teachers' attitude towards required after-school activities. We can identify that this is because there is a one variable, that is the teacher's attitude. So, the design of the research is survey research, and the variable is teachers' attitude toward required after school activities, and the population is secondary school teachers. The second study is the purpose of this study is to investigate the relationship between school entrance age and reading comprehension skills of primary level students. If we look at the variable of the study, the school entrance age and reading comprehension skills are the variables of the study. The population of the study is primary level students, and the design of the study is correlation. The word relation mentioned the design of the study. The third example is the problem to be studied is the effect of wearing required school uniform on the self-esteem of socio-economically disadvantaged 6th grade students. The variable of the studies are self-esteem of socio-economically disadvantaged students, and the second one is the school uniform, and the population of the study is 6th grade students, and the word effect mentions about the design of this research study, and effect means that this research can be a causal comparative or experimental, but it cannot be experimental because we are not manipulating any one of the variable. So this research is the causal comparative research because we are using intact groups. So stating qualitative research topic. Qualitative research topics often are stated in more general language than quantitative ones because in many cases the qualitative researchers need to spend time in the research context for the focus of the study to emerge. Remember, the qualitative researcher usually is much more attuned to the specifics of the context in which the study take place then is the quantitative researchers, because there is a more participant interaction in the qualitative research as compared to the quantitative, sorry. And the qualitative researchers use the emergent design. Most of the time your research design is finalized mm, after the after you start data collection. Qualitative topic statements eventually narrow as the researcher learns more about the research context and its inhabitants, and these more precise statements appear in the research report. Examples of the qualitative research topics. The purpose of this study is to describe the nature of children's engagement with mathematics. The intention is to gather details about children's way of entering into and sustaining their involvement with mathematics. Again, now you can evaluate the qualitative research topic on same criteria as in the quantitative research. We can mm, we can identify the variables of the study, population of the study. In this example, the variables are children's engagement with mathematics, and the population of the study is the mathematics students. So, but the difference between the qualitative and the quantitative problem statement is that it's a more broader and as compared to quantitative. Another example is this qualitative study examines how members of an organization identify, evaluate, and respond to organizational change. The study examines the event that members of an organization identify as a significant change events and whether different events are seen as significant by subgroups in the organization. The purpose of this research is to study the social integration of children. The next studies, the purpose of this research is to study the social integration of the children with disabilities in general education third grade class. The next step in the research process is, after selecting and narrowing down the problem, is that how you are going to develop your research questions. Developing research questions actually give life to your research topic. If we use a teaching analogy here, it is like taking the aims of the lesson, the topic statement, broad statement of outcome, and developing the instructional objectives for the lesson, the research questions, bite sized narrow questions. These research questions will also validate that you have a workable way to proceed with your research. Why research questions? There is a direct connection between the research questions and the data collection strategies the researcher will use to answer the questions. Your research questions actually guide you how you can collect your data and what might be your strategies for the collection of the data. The research questions add another level of specificity to the development of the research and provide the researchers with an action plan for the development and identification of research instrument. It means that your research questions actually guide you people what kind of instrument you people are going to use to collect the data for your research project. Research questions also provide guideline for selection of data analysis techniques. When you have a data, then you have to select a data selection. You have to select a data analysis technique. So you want to answer that question. So it depends upon that question what kind of data analysis technique you is more appropriate to answer that particular question. Here are some examples of research questions. For example, we have a topic. The topic to be investigated in this study is secondary teachers' attitude towards require after school activities. The study which we discussed in the last slide. We can formulate research questions like what are secondary teachers' attitude toward varsity athletics program? What instructional strategies do secondary teachers use to accommodate students' athletes? How do these instructional strategies affect student achievements? If you noticed, when we formulate the questions, actually we become more focused and we know the way how can we proceed our research project after we have our research questions. The second example is the purpose of this study is to investigate the relation between school entrance age and reading comprehension skills of primary level students. So, the question might be what is the correlation between students' entrance age at the beginning of the primary school and their performance in reading comprehension at the end of the first grade? So, uh, we can we can say what uh, what are the characteristics of good research questions? The question is feasible. It can be investigated without expending an undue amount of time, energy, or money because all these things are should have to be managed. The question is clear. Most people would agree as to what the key words in the question mean. The question is significant. It is worth investigating because it will contribute important knowledge about the human conditions. The question is ethical. It will not involve physical or psychological harm or damage to human beings or the natural or social environment of which they are part. The next is, especially in the quantitative research, the researcher formulate a hypothesis. A hypothesis is a researcher predictions of the research findings, a statement of the researcher's expectations about the relations among the variable in the research topic. A hypothesis should be based on a sound rationale. It should derive from previous research or theory, or its confirmation or disconfirmation should contribute to educational theory or practice. Therefore, a major characteristic of good hypothesis is that it is consistent with theory or previous research. A good hypothesis provides a reasonable explanation for the predicted outcomes. For example, if your telephone is out of order and you may hypothesize that butterflies are sitting on your telephone wires, but such a hypothesis does not provide a reasonable explanations. More reasonable hypotheses are that you forgot to pay your bill or might be that our repair crew is working outside. A good hypothesis states as clearly and concisely as possible the expected relation or difference between variables and defines those variables in operational and measurable terms. A simply but clearly stated hypothesis make the relation easier for readers to understand, is simpler to test, and facilitate the formulation of a conclusion. A relation between variables may be expressed as a correlational or a causal one. A well stated and well defined hypothesis must also be testable, and it will be testable if it is formulated and stated in a good manner. It should be possible to test the hypothesis by collecting and analyzing data. It is not possible to test a hypothesis that some students behavior than other because some have an invisible little angel on their right shoulder and some have an invisible little devil on their left shoulders. A researcher would have no way to collect data to support this kind of hypothesis. So, the type of hypothesis, null hypothesis, is the hypothesis in which there is no relationship between two or more variables. It is symbolized as H naught. Research hypotheses are the alternate hypothesis process a relationship between two or more variables and is symbolized as H1. It's up to you. There is no hard and fast rule that you have to go only for the null hypothesis or you have to go for the research hypothesis. Actually, your research project guide you which kind is more suitable for you people. Most of the people ask this question why we are negating any relationship or any difference in the case of null hypothesis. So there is a reason because null hypothesis give us a more rigorous way to more rigorous data analysis techniques, and rejection of the null hypothesis mean that our research hypothesis is accepted. So there are two more kind of hypothesis. Directional hypothesis is one tailed. You assume that by manipulating the independent variable, the dependent variable will change in a specific direction. You can predict if this change will be positive or negative. And non-directional research hypothesis mean it is two-tailed. You assume that by manipulating the independent variable, there will be a change in the dependent variable. You can not predict if this change will be positive or negative. When you are going to decide whether your hypothesis should be directional or non-directional, if you are opting directional hypothesis, you must have evidence in the literature that supported your hypothesis. So if there is enough literature is available, you can give the direction to your hypothesis. If you are undecided, for example, in the case of directional hypothesis, we know that corporal punishment usually uh, affect students' self-esteem. So we can say that the corporal punishment negatively, the word negative mean that we are giving the direction to our hypothesis, and we know the most of the literature support this that the corporal punishment affect negatively to the self-esteem of the students. So we can have directional hypothesis in this context. As far as non-directional is concerned, you have to opt non-directional hypothesis format when you don't know what might be the effect, whether it's positive or negative. For example, if you are studying whether the environment or the heredity is more important for the development of child IQ, because there are so many people who are advocating that environment is more important, and some people support no, inheritance is more important. There are two school of thoughts, and we don't have enough literature available that support any one of the this school of thought. So in such cases we want to open up our hypothesis. So we formulate a non-directional hypothesis. So how can we state the hypothesis? A good hypothesis is stated clearly and concisely, expresses the relation or the difference between variables and define those variables in measurable terms. A general model for stating hypothesis for experimental studies is as follows. P who gets X do better on Y than P who do not get X or get some other X. In this model, this is a very simple model. P is equal to the participant, X is the treatment, the causal or the independent variable, Y the study outcome, the effect are dependent variable. Now we are going to discuss this model with some examples. The purpose of this study is to investigate the effectiveness of 12th grade mentors on the absenteeism of low achieving 10th graders. So, if we try to identify in this example what is P, what is X, and what is Y, P is low achieving 10th graders, X is presence or absence of a 12th grade mentor, and Y is absenteeism. measured as days absent are stated positively, days present. A review of the literature may indicate that the mentors are effective in influencing younger students. Therefore, the directional hypothesis resulting from this topic may read: low achieving 10th graders who have a 12th grade mentors have less absenteeism than low achieving 10th grader who do not. So, in this case, less, the word less actually indicates the direction. Uh, the next example is the purpose of the proposed research is to investigate the effectiveness of different conflict resolution techniques in reducing the aggressive behavior of high school students in an alternative educational settings. For this topic, for example, P is high school students in an alternative educational setting. X is equal to type of conflict resolutions, punishment or discussion. Y is instances of aggressive behavior. The related instructional hypothesis may be non-directional hypothesis may read as for high school students in an alternative educational setting, the number of aggressive behavior will be different. Here is the word different that indicate that the hypothesis is non-directional for the students who receive punishment than for students who engage in discussion approaches to conflict resolution. One more example. This study investigates the effectiveness of token reinforcement in the form of free time given for the completion of practice worksheets on the math computation skills of ninth graders, general math students. In this example, P is ninth grade general math students. X is token reinforcement in the form of free time for completion of practice worksheets. Y is equal to math computation skills. The directional hypothesis of this study can be ninth grade general math students who receive token reinforcement in the form or free time when they complete their practice worksheet have higher math computational skills. Word higher mention the direction than ninth grade general math students who do not receive token reinforcement for completed worksheet. We did not discuss yet the form of the null hypothesis. So here is an example of null hypothesis. There is no difference on Y, the outcome of the study between P1 treatment A and P2 treatment B. P1 treatment A is equal to free time. P2 treatment B is equal to no free time. So we can write the null hypothesis of the above mentioned study is the purpose of the study is to assess the impact of formal versus informal preschool reading instruction on children's reading comprehension at the end of the first grade. So, so we can state there is no significant effect of the null hypothesis might be there is no significant effect of formal versus informal preschool reading instructions on children's reading comprehension at the end of the first grade. That is all about the problem statement and research questions and formulation of the hypothesis. Thank you for your attention and goodbye.